Why won't my computer wake up from sleep? Hi everyone, Leo Notenboom here for askleo.com. Question. I've got a constant frustration that when I wake my computer up after a sleep period, sometimes it comes up fine and other times it cannot establish the internet connections or just doesn't come back up and I end up having to reboot. I've learned to shut down the internet before I sleep. That relieves me of some of the problems, but I can't figure out why at times it just doesn't come up. A dark screen and no blinking light activity. You know, you would think after all this time that sleep, also known as standby, would be a lot more reliable. I said that in 2014 when the first version of the article that this video is based on was published. And I'm saying it again 12 years later in 2026. Sadly, in many cases, it still isn't as reliable as we would hope. I'll explain why that is, what I do, and what steps you might take. Sleep is actually kind of special. When you put your computer into sleep, it's turned off, but not really. Certain parts of the system actually remain powered or partially powered. RAM is the obvious example because it's given enough power so that it doesn't lose its contents. Similarly, some hardware devices on your computer need to handle sleep a little differently than a complete shutdown. Some put themselves into a low power state that can be turned on again more quickly than if they had been fully powered off. The result is that almost every device on your computer needs to at least know about sleep, and almost every device on your system needs to do something different in these moments, both when it's told that a system is about to enter sleep and when the system wakes up from sleep. Now, PCs and Windows are awesome in that you can get machines and hardware from hundreds of different manufacturers. The problem is that we end up with hundreds of thousands of different combinations of hardware. And each and every single one of those drivers for each possible piece of hardware needs to play well with all of the others and handle sleep appropriately. The fundamental problem with sleep, in my opinion, is that the drivers for some of the hardware still aren't handling the special nature of sleep properly 100% of the time. Now, Hibernate sidesteps most of these problems by actually shutting down your computer's hardware completely. The difference is that your computer's state is saved to disk when it's shut down. Then, when you turn your computer back on, it doesn't go through the normal start from scratch process, but rather reloads the saved state and carries on more or less as if nothing had happened. While devices can be aware of hibernation, for most, it's much closer to a normal shutdown and a normal restart. As a result, hibernate, while not without its own occasional issue, is generally more stable than sleep. What's frustrating is that even though sleep has improved over the years, you just can't assume it will work properly on whatever computer you happen to have. Because it's so highly dependent on device drivers and because those drivers vary dramatically between computer makes and models, the result is that sleep on one computer might be solid as a rock and on another it's effectively broken completely. As I said, it's gotten better over the years, but even today, there's just no way to predict. My approach. I used to avoid sleep completely. These days, I'll give sleep a chance. When I get a new laptop, or perhaps after I've performed a clean install of Windows, I'll cautiously try sleep a few times and see what happens. If it seems reliable, as it does on my current framework laptop, then I'll use it as needed. On the other hand, if it fails, usually a failure to wake up so that I have to long press the power button to force a reboot, then I'll avoid it on that specific machine. Instead, I'll either use Hibernate, after a few tests of that as well, or I'll just shut the machine down completely. If you want to try to get sleep to work reliably, I suggest two things. One, check for BIOS/UEFI updates for your system. Much of the power management in a PC is actually performed at the BIOS UEFI level, and as a result, it's heavily involved in sleep. 2, look for updated drivers for what I would call the relevant hardware components. In your case, I'd start with the network interface. Check with the manufacturer for updated network drivers. Other hardware that can quickly come into play include video drivers, so updating those is also a great place to start. For comments, for links to related topics, and more, visit askleo.com/14677. I'm Leo Notenboom, and this is askleo.com. Thanks for watching.